John basically said to me, come and talk, I'd like you to talk really about social media and how you use it and how you see it as an editor. So I've got a bit of a different standpoint because I'm trying to understand it for my business, as I'm one of the owners of B2B marketing. And I'm also trying to understand it as a journalist. So I'm trying to communicate with marketers and tell them how they can use it better themselves. So I've kind of got a bit of a unique standpoint in this, I suppose. So again, no pressure, not putting myself under pressure at all, but I guess that's why he's trying to do it. So I think one of the reasons, the best ways I could think of to kind of kick that discussion off, or that kind of level of insight off, is for a bit of video, which often works quite well. And what better way to talk about social media than to use a social media platform to show what it's all about. So this is something that I saw a while ago, Michelin Web. I hope you all know them better than you know me. Lots of bitterness, angst and general kind of venom in a lot of what they do. But the video, I think, really explains a lot of what publishing companies and media companies generally are going through to try and embrace social media. So Joe, if you could run the video, please.
Mental catastrophe of vast proportions. We asked the minister for shipping to comment on that story, but she just yawned.
But who needs her when we've got you? What do you think about this issue? Do you have any thoughts? What are those thoughts? Will you tell us them? Any thoughts at all will do. If you have them, we want to hear them.
Are you personally affected by this issue? Then email us. Or if you're not affected by this issue, can you imagine what it would be like if you were? Or if you already are affected by it, but don't want to talk about it, can you imagine what it would be like not to be affected by it? Why don't you email and tell us?
Yes, why not? What possible reason could there be for you not to email us? Certainly ignorance shouldn't be a bar. You may not know anything about the issue, but I bet you reckon something. So why not tell us what you reckon? Let us enjoy the full majesty of your uninformed ad hoc reckon by going to bbc.co.uk/me-and-my-important-thoughts, all one word, clicking on what I reckon, and then simply beating on the keyboard with your fists or head.
Here's some of the feedback we've had so far. Andrew from Eastbourne reckons it's a sad indictment of the way we live. Matthew from Ilkley reckons it isn't. Patricia from Southampton wonders what Wordsworth would say and thinks she knows. And James from Amersham would like the fire brigade quickly, for God's sake, he's trapped.
Thanks for those, and keep those emails coming. It is, for some reason, apparently vital that you do.
Okay, so there you are, Michelin Web. Bitterness, angst and bile generally about social media. But that's pretty much the landscape in which kind of media companies are operating in. I mean, just to give a bit of background, I haven't got a presentation because, quite frankly, I was putting a magazine to bed today, so I had something else to do. So I'll just talk off the cuff. When we the background for us and our kind of understanding of social media is we launched B2B Marketing Magazine, which is this thing which is on your desks, in 2004. And when we launched, really our objective is to help marketers understand what they're doing better and get a picture of the landscape. But when we launched, really, the only thing we wanted to do was to have a print-only business model. You know, we were getting our revenue out for subscriptions and advertising. There was no discernible plan to have any web presence at all. It just wasn't on the radar because of the background of the two founders. And you know, in terms of where I was in 2004 about social media, you know, I basically I was a member of LinkedIn. I didn't really know why, but I was. I refused to join Friends Reunited. I thought it was ridiculous, quite frankly, because you know, the people from school that I wanted to see, I still saw, and the rest of them were, you know, losers, clearly, obviously. I had friends in PR who blog, but I had no personal interest in doing it. In other words, I didn't really understand social media, and I had no real interest in doing it. There was nothing relevant in it for me. 2007, it all started to change, and I think it started to change ahead of the economy for the publishing industry. A lot of you out there, marketers and brands, have probably had a really hard time recently, but in publishing, it's been absolutely decimated. We launched, there were 20 marketing magazines, there are now 5. You know, so it's absolutely carnage out there, to be honest with you. Traditional advertising started to decline. Consumer social media started to hit critical mass, and there was lots of hype around things like Second Life. And in short, and as Paul was saying, things would never ever be the same again. It's completely changed everything, and it's continuing to change. So, he says, turning the page. I mean, what are the implications of that for B2B marketing? Well, there are two, really. We need to understand how these new techniques, we need to understand these new techniques in order to write about them and explain it to people. But we also, perhaps more importantly, we need to evolve our business model to adapt to the changing needs, tastes and demands. These two things are clearly very well interlinked, and they work, they kind of play off each other, but they're different, subtly different. So the editorial implications, I mean, our hot topics now are all based on social media. If we put something on an email, that old communication channel, remember email? And it says social media, it says Twitter, it says Facebook, it says LinkedIn, it gets twice the hits of anything else. That's what people are really interested in. So what our readers want to know is how to use LinkedIn, how to use Twitter. Is Facebook relevant in B2B? And we've had an ongoing discussion on our LinkedIn platform, bizarrely, about the use of Facebook in B2B. I think John's contributed quite a lot to it, and we're grateful for that. But it's, there's a lot of discussion about Facebook in B2B, which is a tangent, but it's a very important one. People are interested in how to get ROI from social media, how to measure social media, the social media implications of their brand, how to get the audience to generate content, what kind of content works, how to use video, how to use webcasts and webinars, and what the hell is Web 3.0? I mean, they thought they understood Web 2.0, and now there's Web 3.0 coming around the corner, so it's even more confusing. So all of these things and more are what our audience want us to tell them how to do. And I don't understand them myself, so it's quite a challenge. And then the other side of the coin is that you've got the business implications and how we actually address those. So what are they for us? Well, we've got to do things like, we've got to allow our users to comment and ask questions. We've got to moderate these responses. We've got to respond to feedback. We've got to let members drive the agenda. We must enable and encourage the sharing of content. We must integrate with external platforms and content sources. The magazine is no longer the medium. And we must adapt our brand and positioning to be content neutral. In other words, we must completely change the way we're operating and at the same time find a way to monetize this, because the old revenue channels simply aren't there. So it's all change, and for us as much as it is for you guys, perhaps if not more so. So what have we done? I mean, 2 years ago we started looking, I feel like I'm a bit of a rapper with this. We started looking at social media. We had a bit of an experiment, and we started playing around with various different social flavors of social media, I suppose. Where we are right now is we've got a LinkedIn group with 4,000 people on it, which is very active and lots of things going on there. We've got 20,000 followers on Twitter, which is great. That's our #1 referral source for to our website, and a lot of people seem to like what we're doing there. We're starting to use Facebook more and more. We've got about 500 people in a fan page there, and that's growing steadily month on month, and I think that that's going to be one of the stories in B2B certainly over the next 12 months. Facebook really kind of coming into its own there. Our blog page is the 5th most popular area of our website. We've got a webcast program offering interactive online best practice, and we've got a major new development this autumn where we're actually rolling out a full social media platform on our website, which will allow people to do all the things that they want to do increasingly, or that we believe they want to do increasingly, which is to comment and to rate and to discuss, etc., etc., etc. And the huge challenge for us then is to get people to change their behaviour on the site, because previously we were going there and reading things. Now we want to go there and do things. So it's a game changer. We've got to follow the agenda, and we've got to follow the money, to be frank. So it's all very exciting, but there are massive challenges. And before I go and hand over, John did ask me to talk about some of the issues and threats and things that people are going to be encountering. And I've kind of written a list of top 10 things or bottom 10 things that people need to consider when they're considering social media. The first one is there are very few rules and models. Anyone who tells you they definitely have what works and what doesn't is either a liar or is very misguided. That's because, as Paul says, it's changing all the time. And the second point is because it's changing all the time. And what might work today might not work tomorrow, because it's gone out of fashion or because something new's turned up. I mean, Foursquare is a classic example of that, isn't it? It's still relatively new, and people are still working out how that works. And that's going to continue to evolve. Number 3 is it's one big experiment. The whole thing is one big experiment, and the sooner you start testing, the sooner you find out what works for you. But you've got to keep going with it. It's the testing continues. Number 4 is it's about commitment and continuous dialogue. Once you commit to social media, you must maintain this, or you'll damage your brand. If you start a conversation, you leave halfway through it, people are going to be annoyed with you, and they're not going to like you anymore. Number 5, it might take time. Although you're excited about it, your audience won't necessarily be. Different people will take longer to turn up, and they might not even contribute ever. You've got to be aware of that. The 6th thing to consider is very, very democratizing. This is a very good thing about it. Brand size doesn't necessarily matter when it comes to social media. It's how you use the tools and how you engage with your audience. It's all about a great opportunity for things like challenger brands, which I know is an issue that Hurricane are very fond of. And it requires very different skill sets, but the good news is you can teach yourself whilst you're doing the job, which is very exciting for everybody. You don't have to necessarily go back to school. Number 8, it's a massive distraction. It can be a very massive distraction, rather. Plan what you do very carefully and set realistic objectives, and don't take your eye off the central business objectives. And number 9 is you've got to be where your audience is. So if you want to do social media, you've got to understand the dynamics. It's all, again, this is kind of back to the basics of B2B marketing. Number 8, it's a massive distraction. It can be a very massive distraction, rather. Plan what you do very carefully and set realistic objectives, and don't take your eye off the central business objectives. And number 9 is you've got to be where your audience is. So if you want to do social media, you've got to understand the dynamics. It's all, again, this is kind of back to the basics of B2B marketing. You've got to understand your customer and what they want,
where they are and how they want to talk, and you've got to be where they are. And it might be that your customer's on Facebook but not on LinkedIn, or they might be interested in Foursquare but not Twitter. And you've got to understand that, and your strategy should fall out from that naturally. And the final, perhaps the most profound thing about social media, I think, is that it means that you're not in control anymore. The very nature of social media is that means that you have to surrender control. And that's going to be really tough for some brands and some marketers. But it's really important to recognise. It's a fundamental change in the relationship you have with your audience. So that's all from me. I hope that's been at least slightly interesting and useful. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you very much.